get in game and figure it out. What the hell is gonna happen here? What the hell's gonna happen here? Request for some Dream as well? Yeah, I'd love to cast some Dream too. I think Dream and TY are in the same section, I want to say, but then I say that and then I stumble because then I'm actually not too sure. But you guys know me. I always want to cast the Terrans anyways, right? So I want to cast the Terrans. We'll cast some PvZ to start. We'll come to a compromise. I'll cast some PvZ if Scarlett's involved. Okay? Cool. Top right-hand side, our green Protoss player. This is Creator. Taking on the red Zerg in the bottom left. Unfortunately not making it out of GSL yesterday. It is Scarlett. At this point, guys, I'm sorry if you didn't see GSL. There's going to be spoilers. It's been a day. And I know a lot of you guys maybe didn't get to watch and stuff like that. I obviously try not to do spoilers, but we can't talk about someone who played in the group without talking about what happened in the group. Right? It just makes my job, like, impossible. So if you are super wanting to avoid spoilers, I would advise at least tuning out for the Scarlet series. And I don't think anyone else that was in the group yesterday is playing today. Just double check in my head. I don't think they are because I don't think Tasia checked in. And Dark didn't want to play this tournament. And I actually don't know about Dia. Anyways, the important news, obviously, was that Scarlett did not have a very... I would say she had a pretty successful day, but I didn't get to see all the latter games because I was already streaming. So I had it up on my phone watching. I was kind of like watching while I was casting, but obviously there's only so much I can watch while I cast. So I only got the general gist of how things were going and didn't see a lot of specifics. So, you know, she had a good showing, I think, and I don't think anyone is really going to be upset at the performance, but... It just felt like she was almost so close to round of 8. Just a kind of a shame to then not quite make it, right? But of course, alas, that's the way of StarCraft 2. It's a tough little game that we play here, guys, and only a couple people can make it through each of those groups, and there's some very good players in those groups. I mean, that's what happens when you get to the round of 16 of the GSL. Overlord hanging out at the front here as he does see the Adept Chrono boosting out. The Warp Gate is actually a little slow, so this is very interesting. The Twilight Council started before the Warp Gate. Now, usually, you would go for the for the Stargate before Warp Gate, but if you go Twilight, you're usually dependent on the Warp Gate timing. And if you're usually dependent on the Warp Gate timing, you're usually dependent on building it up straight away, rather than delaying it until your Twilight starts. So, I wonder if A, there's a mind game here from Creator. And I wonder if B, there's a plan. He's going to drop a Robo? Is he just going to go Glaives? Well, either way, it's going to be tough because this Dark Shrine's already starting up from Scarlet, so she's already going to get very aggressive very quickly in the start of this game. So she's getting up for that already. Robotics facility about halfway done. Dark Shrine from Creator, okay. Now the DTs can obviously make a pretty good defense against this. If you get the DTs out, they can press forwards and they can obviously look to fight those roaches off. That would be a pretty big thing. As the Adept from Creator goes shading forwards to the upper right-hand side. So away it will go. As the Ling's coming in there, getting us around. And the Adept is going to take a bit of damage. And is then going to shade by in towards the natural expansion. So Adept shades through. The few Zerglings continuing across. And the Stalker and Adept very quick to jump on that Zergling or two. And very quick to keep that at bay. Obviously, here come the Roaches. You're on a real timer here as Scott. Half a minute and then the Dark Shrine is up. Well, you can absolutely deal damage in half a minute here, and damage enough to get back in this game, but, you know, because obviously, especially with the Lings, right, there's going to be a period of time where you're not really, you know, where the DTs are still cleaning up. Shield Battery here to help hold the wall. There's a Sentry as well, but of course, you've got Corrosive Valves to help break down the Force Field. There's a nice pullback away. Now the Force Field has to get Corrosive Valve down. Probe's pulled into this. The Shield Battery already out of energy. The Roaches and Ravagers sneaking through. We should have DTs ready any second now. They will start to warp in. Corrosive Valve's down a Shield Battery on the right side, so that goes down. The DT will start to slice, but like I said, it's going to be a lot of time until it cleans up all of these Zerglings, so it takes a while for Creator to really stabilize here. To the point where against the Zerglings, it's almost better just to have the Archon, because the splash damage on those Lings helps so much. Probes are going to pull down to the low ground then as... Yeah, I actually really wouldn't mind these DTs getting their Roaches and Ravages, then morph into an Archon, if they can find the chance. That's the issue, right? Finding the opportunity to actually morph into an Archon can be pretty tough. Probes are pulling, and the worker counts are evening out to the point where this might even just stabilize. Scarlett will start to drone, realizing her damage is done. And across the map, the Warp Prism is here, so her defense isn't set up at all. She's not ready for the DT counterattack. Well, that said, Creator is not warped in just yet. Doesn't have the gas for it, so Scarlett is kind of saving herself. This one Spore Crawler, by the way, is she just really not expecting the Prism? I feel like she doesn't think the Prism has been made during this time. I think she just expects the Prism to have not come out because Creator saw this attack, so he didn't invest into it, so he saved some money. But not the case. And the drones, well, they're going to give up the main base. What do you do? New Spore Crawler in the natural, maybe? And then... Oh, what? That is insane. How would the... This Spore Crawler has, like, insane range. The Spore Crawler's almost got as much range as, like, a Queen's anti-air attack. Like, what was that? That DT was on top of the ramp. Okay, well, this is actually going to be okay-ish for Scarlett. I mean, you have lost a few drones. You are losing mining. But, of course, you're not in, like, a bad position. The game itself is in a weird state, and you're kind of ahead of a few workers here. I think, in general, this is going to reset, and we're going to get a bit more of a standard game out of this. We'll see if Scarlett... Well, no, she is not meant to be building a second Roach Roar, let me tell you that much. Is this one of those scenarios where she just forgets she Roach Rolled, and so she's like, okay, Roach Roar number 2, get that down. Yeah, I'm not too sure about that one. There's an Archon morphing in underneath this as well. And that's set up. And, yeah, Archon beneath this Prism. A couple of Adepts continue at the front, a Gateway. Going to continue morphing in as well, as the second Archon will be finishing here from Creator. That's going to hop into this Warp Prism. Two Archons load up. Prism is going to move back into the main base. Spore Crawler firing, and the Warp Prism taking a few shots of damage. The Spore pulling back into the main as the two Queens will continue to push forwards here. A couple Archons going to be... continue to push backwards. Queens continue to fire in that Prism, taking a lot of shots as the third Nexus sets up down this right-hand side. Just going to see the couple of extra gateways and a Mortal on the way out. All the usual stuff here, I think, for Created just to follow up, right? Especially when you've seen Roaches early. You're probably going to make sure you have a way to deal with Roaches a little bit later. Yeah, she really did just forget she had an early game Roach Roar, and that one just finishes up, starts Roach speed. She makes a ton of Overlords, and she might just go into full-on Roach production. Nope, just gonna add a few more drones. I actually didn't see the drone count. Drone count at 60. So that's gonna keep rising up here, in fact, as a couple probes transfer over to the third base. And the two Archons already coming in. That Overlord already taking some damage. Taking a few shots, and... Well, Prism back in towards the center of the map. As the Blink coming up here, the two extra gates, the Forge... All of this continuing up with the Spire on the way in the back of the main base. So, getting that Spire underway. Obviously, Scarlett looking for a little bit of a tech switch towards the Mutalisks now. As she gets into this kind of later stage scenario against Creator. And the Mutalisk switch is always very dangerous. But nowadays, when you see so many Protoss players investing into Blink as their Twilight upgrade initially, it does become that little bit worse, right? Because immediately you're going into Stalkers, which already have a lot more mobility to help out against those Mutalisks. I mean, this is a great scout for Creator too. Even gets to see the Spire coming up, so he can even start up some static defense and mineral lines. And that begs the question of, do you even continue to invest into this then as Scarlett? Do you still make those Mutalisks? Because if you're making those Mutalisks at this point, and they're flying into like static defense, don't get me wrong, they can absolutely still deal damage. But the chance of them dealing good damage is obviously going to be decreased quite heavily. A few more Ravages building up here. The Lings and Roaches continuing out up to the top side. I'm just going to see the couple of Archons still hanging around here as well. The Stalkers, a couple of Immortals. Out through the top. So it's going to be a big attack here from Creator. So he's up on 3 base saturation, starting to take extra gas behind this and tech into a Robo Bay, but at the very least, he's going to have a check to see what he can do, especially if Scarlett is making those Mutalisks, right? Then You know, then Creator is in a position where this army can absolutely fight those Mutalisks. That's not an issue. He's going to try and make it back home. Pops the Guardian Shield already. The Lings start running in. The Force Fields, they help delay this attack, but they don't really block the units off that much. I mean, I guess you wait for the Corrosive Files anyways. And Scarlett fighting this. She did make a lot of Ravages. That's where her gas went. So, well, she's going to keep pushing up. This is going to be just Ravages soon, and just Ravages on their own are pretty flimsy. So you got to be careful about that. There was a lot of Roaches in production that she kind of needed to finish up here. And which are starting to really finish up now as the melee upgrade and that Baneling Nest and that Baneling Speed continue to come into play. Colossus Chrono boosting from the robotics facility, and Scarlett going to come out across the side and hang out around the front. Bunch more Zerglings still in production, and again the +1 melee upgrade on the Evolution Chamber still coming in as well. As that +2 attack upgrade on the Forge is going to continue spinning. Charge upgrade on the Twilight Council, and our gateway is still underway. Cannon in production, a few extra Zealots on the 3rd base. I'm just going to see this Warp Prism is unloading in the center. So these 2 Immortals will drop down. And the Queen very quick to jump on that Warp Prism. So very quick to jump on this, and just going to be seeing our Stalkers of Creator. Out towards the middle of the map here, comes across, picks off his Zergling, still seeing +2 attack and charge being invested into now. As the hallucination continues down to the bottom left-hand side, a whole bunch of Banes morphing in the middle of the map here from Scarlett, so it's a lot of units. I honestly think she had a very good fight across the map just then. I feel like she cleaned up a lot, and you can see resource loss is fairly favorable to Creator. In a world where Scarlett's been mining kind of a lot more ever since the early stage attack. So, yeah, I kind of like it for Scarlett, but of course she is up against a very heavily teched army. And 2 Colossus absolutely become terrifying here. Let's see what Scarlett can do. If she can get a few Banes by into the natural, for example, that might be really good. Just go and blow up probes. She saves a few of the Banes, but she does just go and blow up the entire natural mineral line, cannon included. 15 workers will just die there, and well, again, backing away is an interesting kind of concept, because if you back away from this, you could absolutely be in trouble. These Colossus is going to go running. We're going to see a few more Banes in the mineral line. There's now 26 workers killed, plus Banes in the main base. 31 workers killed. More Banes rolling in. 33 probes go down. Stalkers, Colossus, and Immortals continuing forwards, and the Roach Ravager army will be pushed away. This DT coming along to keep on chasing it down. And the Roaches and the Ravagers will go running. There's a couple of Corrosive Files dropping, and the Stalkers do turn back away from that. 20 more Zerglings in production here with +2 melee on the way up. And these Stalkers all the way out to this top side. Infestation Pit dropping into the main base as well. Stalkers pick off a Zergling or 2, a bunch of Ravagers morphing in. And I'm going to see 34 more Banelings on the way for Scarlett. So a lot of Banelings being made once again. Definitely feels as though she could get aggressive off this once more. I mean, this army is just gigantic at the moment. As you do see our Stalkers making their way out of down the bottom side, and well, these Banelings is going to be morphing in here, going to get caught pretty much right away. Lings will cancel up, and we're just going to see Ling Roach, Ravager, Bane up between the bases, and guess who's out on the map? It's Creator, so he's not going to be home to really defend this. I mean, Corrosive Files can knock down the front door here, of course. Actually, just going to get in pretty much right away. Opens up a new doorway as she takes down the Cybercore and the gateway. Creator losing out there. Now Scarlett just turns into the large army bike, and those Banelings through towards the Stalkers. Trying to connect them in as best they can. A couple of Archons drop the Immortal as well. It's just really the Colossus left, and that goes down also. Scarlett will take map 1 off of the TSL4 champion, don't forget. Creator, the TSL4. Let's jump into Simulacrum for our second game here. In the bottom right-hand side to start us off. Whoa, 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 that's some lag. The bottom right-hand side to start this off. Down a map. Our green Protoss player is Creator. Taking on our red Zerg in the top left-hand side from Brave Star Gaming, it's Scarlett. A very fun game number 1. I kind of hope for game number 2 that's kind of the same. Maybe even Creator takes game 2, you get a good 3-game series to start the day. I'd be totally down for that. I think that would be a lot of fun, actually. I think that would be a lot of fun. I don't know what you guys are thinking. I'm thinking fun. I'm thinking awesome. I'm thinking epic. You know?
Game pause.
Scarlett's thinking, let's pause this game. Well, I mean, that's one way to stretch it out. I wasn't expecting it to be via a pause, but, no. Okay, it happens. It works. Alright, so we're going to pause up, and we're going to give it a few moments here for Scarlett to sort out whatever's going on. Of course, too early in the game to really talk too much about what's going to happen here based on builds. Simulacrum has a map, really kind of invite. I mean, this hatch block's already going down. I guess it isn't too early to talk about what's going on. This is already going to be a hatchery block here from Creator. And with the hatchery block already set, it's very possible we do just see a Twilight Council on a shorter map that might be good for Adepts anyways. That's one of the builds we've seen a lot of lately, and especially looks to take advantage consistently of the fact you hatch block and then a Glaive's timing and an Adept timing, which is very well built up, and you're able to slow the Zerg down in any little way. It really adds up, and then the Zerg has a lot of trouble dealing with that. So then the Zerg has a lot of trouble dealing with that, and it makes their life just so much more difficult. So maybe we see something along those lines here from Creator, especially with this hatch block being successful. It's kind of not really a great Stargate map, I would say. I don't know what it is about this one, but it always feels as though... I don't think it is super short, but it always feels super short. Alright, well, go being called. Scarlett says go, Creator says go, and we will resume into game number 2. So probe on a bit of a patrol over on the natural expansion, the 3rd hatchery, starting up down the left-hand side as well. I'm just going to be seeing the, gateway at the front setting up, and another probe just building up to the natural expansion. So, as we get ourselves resumed, let's see what happens, guys. Let's just see what happens. Next is on the natural. Again, I don't think there's going to be anything necessarily super crazy here. And as the cybernetics core goes down as a follow-up. So Overlord going to continue down the bottom right-hand side. Then Creator will drop off a couple of minerals and just jump into this assimilator. Waiting for the cyber core to be done so we can talk about a bit of a tech choice. Yeah, like I said, I'm really feeling the Adepts here, if anything's going to happen. As the drone of Scarlett continues down to the 3rd base. So we'll bring that drone down to the 3rd. Just going to see the probe continue to chase as well. And the probe just going to get on a little bit of a patrol down here. Keep track of just what's happening. So yeah, Overlord hanging out overhead as this Adept just gets Chrono boosted out. And it is going to be Twilight Council first. Now, I do feel like in this case, if you're skipping Warp Gate again, it definitely feels like a mind game, right? You delay the Warp Gate to kind of sell the idea of a Stargate, and then you go Twilight. Now, last game, the mind game never came into effect because the attack from Scarlett came in pretty quickly. And you could maybe argue that the delay of a Warp Gate then obviously hurts you. You're playing a mind game, which you end up being all in against. It's just like, well, that mind game isn't really very isn't really very great for you. So yeah, a bit of a mind game once again as the Warp Gate now does start up. Will it just be Glaives this time, or do we see Dark Shrine again? Looks like the Robo will drop down to begin with. Maybe he just wants to go Dark Shrine again, just says, well, you know. And the Skull gets a full scout in the main, so now she knows exactly what's up. It's obviously amazing, especially even more so she gets a probe on top of it. And a few probes pulled to fight it off. But yeah, Robo again, and it kind of feels like Creator was maybe just thinking of going DTs once more because he never really got to play his build out last game. And yes, it was kind of revealed what it was up to, but it's one of those builds where it's like, it's not crazy that you can figure out what it is as Scarlett. Like, it's one of those builds that it's standard enough that you can just do it a couple times in a row, even if you did just sort of show your hand as to what it could be. Because you're not really reliant on the DTs coming in and killing like a base every time or like multiple drones. The Archon drop in itself is strong and stable enough to be able to say, okay, hi, what's up? We can, we can deal some damage, we can get some kills, and we can keep you back and we can keep you busy. So the DT Shrine, the Dark Shrine, and the Archon drop is really not too out of the ordinary in that regard. A couple of adepts will shade back, so they're just going to scout up the right side. Creator being very safe. You can see he's very wary of who he is playing. He knows Scarlett is fairly well known for being aggressive, for being a bit wonky at times. Not sending these adepts across the map until the warp prism is out here, bringing a couple of these adepts as well. Yeah, this is actually pretty fun because while Scarlett got the scout into the main base, she never saw the Dark Shrine, so this really looks, and I mean really looks like an adept attack. Now there are going to be basically spore crawlers up in every base, apart from in the main, but the lair just finished, so there should be an overseer ready anyways. Just one DT warps in with this at the moment from Creator. Just going to go forwards and swipe this queen a little bit. She just cancelled the spore, but like I say, the lair is done, so I don't think it's going to be a major problem. We'll lose the Stalker at the front here, and unfortunately that means that these Lings, well, they could have gone in, but they will not. The Adepts threaten a shade forwards. The DT came back for the rest of the DTs to warp in, and for them to all become Archons and jump up into that prism. Still nice to keep these DTs, you know, these Adepts here, sorry, because it really gives you some extra aggressive options. You can really shade into a couple different mineral lines, but Creator says I'd rather just have those at home and make sure I can hold on to my third base. The Scarlett will once again drop a Spire, so very similar to the first game, but she never got to make use of that in game number 1. And as we do see, the 2 Archons will be able to kill an Overlord already, and then the 2 Archons will hop up into the main base, where they'll continue to just trade out with actual units, of course. So, Roaches and Queens, there's a lot of them there, and right away Creator will not do too much in that. As the Archons go back to the low ground, we'll kill off this Overlord. It's a supply block for Scarlett. All of these Lings hanging out on the bottom side of this, our third Nexus is going to be finishing up soon. Roach speed is going to be done, and a few extra gates coming into play. Forge on the way up as well in the main base, so continuing to get that going. And still just seeing the Archons unloading once again out in the front of this creep spread. So a little bit of that creep that could potentially be cleaned up as the Blink is on the way down on the Twilight Council. The extra gates coming in, a few probes continuing to Chrono Boost, and again, all of that economy continuing to set up now as Spire about to complete. The Evolution Chamber not far behind it. And that Blink is also continuing to come into play as the 2 assimilators get dropped down on the third base. So, getting those down. Just going to be seeing the Adept Sentries, the Immortal, all of this moving across over that left-hand side. Overseer coming into play as well. Going to see a 4th hatchery from Scarlett already, and can she defend this against this little bit of a push? 7 minutes, the 2 Archons, the 2 Immortals. You see this push very often, and there's not really any, like, Twilight upgrade in this. Blink is done soon, but yeah, it's kind of designed to force you to make units defensively and units that you might not want, such as a lot of Roaches when you maybe want to play into, like, a higher tech unit. In this case, the Spire and the Mutalisks. Sometimes, you know, you force a few more Balins to morph in, so you don't, you know, you just force units and gas investment into the units you maybe don't want to make just yet, and especially maybe units over drones, right? So, it's a nice little push, but it's also a good pullback from Creator, and I think it's absolutely necessary. What is this shame is that he's actually very heavily supply blocked, and he only built 1 pylon, so he's going to continue to be supply blocked here for a little while. Now, Scarlett builds 3, now 4 Mutalisks. So really only a handful of Mutalisks here to begin with, and I mean, I say a handful, I don't think that's too much of a handful at all, actually. Just 4 of them on the way. 2 Immortals drop down and will chase this Ravager back into the center. The Roaches go running as well. And the Mutas will be down on the bottom side, so Scarlett ready to move in toward the main base or so. In the very near future, I'd imagine, as an Immortal drops off, a Zergling gets picked away at. And a couple more Ravagers now from Scarlett morphing in on the front of all of this. So getting those 2 extra Ravagers up, the Lings coming through. Alien Nest will drop in the back of this mineral line as the Mutas come in, and just a couple of probes being picked away at. 1, 2. I mean, obviously this is not a crazy Mutalist count either, right? This was actually just 3 Mutalists that showed up. One of them nearly getting intercepted as reinforcements flew across the army. But keeps it alive. But yeah, to get a couple of probes already is all, you know, it's actually kind of nice, right? You already killed 2 probes. And the Mutalist count continues up. It's already a scare factor, so, you know, Creator already starts investing some extra defense into those Mutalisks. Now, in this case, it's going to work out well because Scarlett continues to make Mutas, although only up to 8, so it's still not like a massive investment. right? I mean, when we're talking about like 20 Mutalisks, that's when you're like, okay, you're invested. But 8 is still just kind of the early kind of levels of harassment and aggression and kind of seeing what you can do. So I feel like any investment defensively, of course, with 8 Mutalisks is still just like, okay, great, you know, you're taking me seriously, you're making, you know, spending money to make sure you don't take damage. I have my mutas up to defend Warp Prism attacks, and, you know, just in general in fights they can be fairly useful as well sometimes. And of course, I can still look for openings that you may be left too undefended. So I really, like I say, I think Craig's doing the right thing. You've got to respect this. I think Scarlett's getting this exactly out of this what she wants. Hive and the Spire Star at the same time. I mean, she's not even upgrading a flyer, an air upgrade right now. I imagine she is. She did this in the last game. She built a Roach she already had. I think right now she's building a Spire for Broodlord that she already has as well. Alright, well, Roaches and Ravagers pulling back over the left. A couple of Queens jumping straight on into this couple of Adepts, which I think get one drone. Not much really achieved there. Peeking in the second Stargate, I mean, it's necessary, right? If Scarlett's going to start building up in towards Broodlords and so on, you need a proper air-based response to that, whether it's the Tempest or whether it's the Carriers. Both of those are fairly strong options. As the mutas come in, the Stalker takes a little bit more damage, and we do see the Fleet Beacon coming up in the main base now. Will be done shortly as Lingbane Roach Ravager continues over to the far right-hand side. So Scarlett making her way out over to the far right. A couple of DTs will warp in. They'll morph into an Archon on that upper right base. And all those Banes joining up together. They're going to take a turn. They're going to make their way towards this mineral line. A couple of corrosive bars already, forcing some units back. A hallucination will start to come up to the top side. As that Banes do make their way through. They're going to be able to blow up quite a few probes here. For whatever reason, we don't have worker kill counter on in this game, guys. So I apologize, but how did that Archon survive? Scarlett kind of just let it get away. A little bit of a shame. There's a fight on the bottom left. His Lings run into some Archons as well. It ain't pretty at the moment, not gonna lie, guys. And again, Scarlett has a massive bank, and she rebuilds 90 Zerglings at once. She needs to think about Corruptors, and she needs to think about her Broodlords. More so the Corruptors because Carriers are building, but also the Broodlords because if you don't make something happen with Broodlords in the very near future, then Carrier count gets too high, then the Broodlords just never really become a good choice. At that point, Broodlords are always kind of like a weaker choice, I suppose. Which is obviously far from ideal, as we do see the few extra Banelings morphing in, Ravagers and Roaches. Back up around the top side, a few Zealots will go charging forwards, and units get there pretty much right away to shut that down and deflect. That's a lot of Lings on the bottom side, cleaning up. As the Archons and the Stalkers and all the good stuff continues around as well. Another hallucination gets picked off here. Units continue to join up in the middle of the map. A lot of this from Scarlett in the top right. There's our army from Creator on the bottom. It's going to get a Nexus down. So that's base number 5 as these Lings run in. Archons are very quick to clean up a lot of those Zerglings. They're just trying to run into this at the same time as well. I feel like this is getting much better for Creator. It feels like the last couple of attacks from Scarlett have just been her somewhat donating units. And now she really needs an air army to fight off these Corruptors, so making progress, fight off these Carriers. Which up to 4 now. Obviously that number is rising, and it's rising quickly. So it's definitely something to be scared of. Ugh. Pure Mutalisks getting ripped to shreds here as the Archons move overhead. Or the mutas move overhead of the Archons. I think at this point the mutas don't really want to be out anyways. I feel like there's not really a lot of options for them to deal damage. So it might be somewhat like the idea of freeing up supply. Flies them in for a probe here. Like I say, it really feels like she pulls them back again to seize these probes. I feel like it would have been nice to keep them alive to fight these probes a little bit, but I also don't think she's super upset that the Mutalisks are going down. The only thing I would say is actually when she had 3 alive, it might have been nice just to keep 3 as like a Warp Prism hunt, hunt squadron, right? Because if then there's a Warp Prism, you just right-click the Warp Prism with your few Mutalisks, and the Mutalisks are going to fly towards that. They're going to get on top of it. They're going to shut it down. And the next thing you know, you're talking about a dead Warp Prism, and that's just it. Like, the Warp Prism doesn't fly away, it doesn't go hide in a corner. I know you've got Corruptors, but the Mutas are just a little bit faster as well for kind of getting to that, and it also means you don't have to pull the Corruptors away from the main army fights. As Scarlett runs down this bottom side, you see Creator has a couple of mortals over here. He's really just looking to trade out the units he doesn't need. He already attack moved some of his own Stalkers just to get rid of them. Well, he was way out of position. This fifth base is going to go down very quickly. But look at the Immortals. On the bottom side, they just didn't get the hatchery kill. On the top side, they will. So he's going to deny the 5th base of Scarlett. Very narrowly got the 4th base here. Oh, that's actually very low still. The idea is the Immortals don't actually have as much of a role to play at this later stage of the game, so you trade them out in any way you can to then basically get more anti-air up and to be able to play more so against the Broodlords. But yeah, obviously, the ones on the top side actually get a hatchery, and I mean, that's the dream scenario. He actually brings them back and keeps them alive. I guess it's not really that bad to just bring them back and then go again a little bit later. I mean, if they're still getting value, then great, but eventually you do want to trade them out. And there's still Roach Raptor in this, but again, you're more so looking towards Storms, the Carriers, and the Archons. At this stage of the game, was that, whatever that was, got the hatchery to 18 hit points. This hatchery is so close to going down, these Lings could accidentally brush up against it, and it might just rip the entire thing apart. It's like, accidentally nipping a hole in the side of the bouncy castle. It's just gonna, like, a tiny little thing is just gonna bring this whole thing crashing down. Well, Grey might just focus an attack on this bottom side as well. He can push forwards from this base, protecting it, and then maybe get over here and take this hatchery down. A couple of transfusions come in to protect as the 5th base back up from Scarlett here. Predator needs to realize he's got these Archons stuck as well, by the way. At whatever point he recalled, these Archons got stuck, and he's just not realized that. But you'd think he would maybe realize because he's got the Immortals kind of here. Okay, he brings the Warp Prism over, so it looks as though he has just noticed it. These Archons, they're all booking themselves to train out of this little container. Oh, maybe they should have stayed there. I was going to say, in a way, maybe he just wants the Archons left there for the defense, because actually, this Archon sitting in this little gap here can't be hit by anything, so maybe it wouldn't have been so bad. This is kind of funny, because this is like such a trade-off for both players, more so for Scarlett. This is Scarlett's way of saying, well, I don't want these units anymore, I want something better. Making Hydras, the Lings, maybe not so much. A lot more Corruptors on the production tab. She's not rich, though. Maxing out and 1k left in the bank. I mean, Creator's been maxed out for a little bit, and hence 3k, 2.5k. Storm about to be done, investing into extra stack defense upgrades starting for the air units already. When I say already, I mean more upgrades starting. Scarlett also has +2 missiles, flyer attack finishing. She already has +1 flyer carapace in the sky. Hey, this little group of army just gonna try and fight something out. Like I said, just make use of it, right? It was kind of funny because both these players weren't really too worried about what they did with these units on that right-hand side. Scarlett didn't mind that they go down. I think Creator's kind of like, well, you know, what you kill is just more room for more carriers. And that's exactly where this game has gone. A few Stalkers pressing in and able to do a little bit more, denying a Creep Tumor already. And continuing forwards, able to grab another Creep Tumor as well. Nice fungal growth does land on all of these Stalkers, so a bunch of Stalkers getting picked away at, and now finally starting to blink away through into the center of the map, joining up with the rest of this Protoss army, which will gather up. A couple of Archons and Templar pressing through here. Nice little abduct on the Oracle. It's going to get brought forwards, and now we still have these broods hanging about overhead. The army of Creator going to move over the left-hand side. A lot of Corruptors, a lot of Broodlords. Of course, this is the sort of game where you do just sort of set up that stack defense. And you just get ready to defend and make this a very, very long game. Hey, it's what we asked for. It's exactly what I asked for, actually, after game number 1. I was like, something similar to the first game. This is very different to the first game, but in length, it really is going to do the job. As we have our carriers continuing on out, and a good army from Creator out in the middle of the map as well. +2 missiles, +3 carapace, and the +2 flyer carapace as well, continuing on the Greater Spire. As you see a couple of carriers coming across. Interceptor still just all over the place and getting a few more Creep Tumors here. It's a yoink on the Mothership. It goes down instantly. A couple of feedbacks drop on other Vipers though. Didn't get any of the Infestors there. So hard to push into that as the Ravager Hydra squad gonna make its way down and fight some of these cannons. High Templar has such a job on his shoulders. He's got to carry this entire defense. Especially when there's corrosive biles, the cannons as a defense are not exactly gonna last forever, you know? As Hydras and Ravagers up this left-hand side. All of these carriers and Archons into the middle of the map. The High Templar joining up as well. The 4 extra Infestors, the +2 missiles, the +3 Carapace, +3 flyer attack also on the Spire too. As all of this joins in the middle of the map here. A few Interceptors flying forwards. A Corruptor already taking some shots. And these Archons coming through and just going to see some Changelings already being taken down. Cannons, shield battery, just going to be finishing in the top right-hand side. So going up to a base number 6 as we do have the lone creep tumor pressing forwards in the center on the bottom. Trying to re-expand some of that creep down. I mean, at this stage, you really are looking to slow this down heavily. And I mean, that's what Scarlett's done, right? These walls of static defense. She should never really be looking to fight away from those, which makes me a little bit worried about this bottom side base, which she's already setting up now. It might be just a little bit too late to actually come in and defend that. We're talking about 13 carriers marching across, 104 interceptors available. And yeah, there's just, without the stack defense here, you just never fight this. So you've just got to give up this base for the moment. That's not the end of the world. You can come back to this base later, but we are 21 minutes in, and it is just 5 bases from Scarlett. And 21 minutes in, you kind of want just a couple more than that. You want an extra base, basically. But she doesn't have any creep out the front to really take this base. Otherwise, when you move this army down here, that's what you generally expose yourself to. And maybe that's still what's going to happen, especially with this Nexus. That's me. That's me. Especially with this Nexus being built bottom left. It says, you know, Creator's basically saying, hey, I want to push from here. This is going to be my position. So you take the top right. And if you take the top right, I've got war pins very close to the base for harassment. So we'll see how that works out. There's a stage of this game where you actually do want to start making some mineral-only units. You know, from Scarlet, some Zerglings, and from Creator, some Zealots. Because it gets to a stage where you don't really have enough, you know, enough gas to keep building. You have more minerals than gas, basically. That's what usually happens. So they get to this point where you do kind of want to make just some mineral-only units, and for Predator, the best way to do this is to run Zealots at bases. For Scarlet to do that, it's obviously static defense or the Zerglings. Obviously, this time she's built a ton of static defense already. I mean, we're talking about 38 Spore Crawlers and 18 Spines. So there's a lot of minerals already invested there, and that's why her gas bank is a little bit larger already than her mineral bank. As these Interceptors actually get in, and they kill a Broodlord there, which I don't feel is meant to happen. I do feel like when I was looking around before, this base felt like the weakest base for static defense, just because it's all in like a long line. Whereas around here, it seems like there's a similar amount all clumped up together. Same up here. So it feels like if there is a weak point to Scarlet's defense, it's probably on this bottom side base at the moment. Hydras and Ravagers already showing up and starting to pick their way through some of the cannons on the right side of this. So just chipping away, but not really going to do much. Scarlet tries to re-expand here. That won't work. Creator sees the base top right, and that's why I do imagine Zealot warpins to that upper right side might be very useful. Creator is just struggling because he actually has no spare supply to deal with this attack up here. I mean, he's just going to let a gateway or two go down. Scarlet's like, oh my goodness, Creator, you're so bad at killing my units, I'm going to have to do it for you. Targets down her own Ravagers. I think just really doesn't see any need for these at the moment, as Creator gives up a few more probes, more carriers on the way into production. And all of this, all of these shield batteries already building up on the bottom left-hand side as well. Another round of spores and spines. Scarlet pushes her way out to the right side of the map. That's what she wants to do, right? She wants to take over this area here. She wants to set up that static defense around this base. That's what she wants. If Creator takes the bottom left and has static defense there, she needs to mirror that. Resources lost is better for Creator so far, so again, eventually Scarlet either... I mean, Scarlet generally does start to trade a bit better in these fights as time goes on, technically. Whether it's good enough, we'll see, but it means that she doesn't necessarily need to be a base up. Obviously, if you do end up mining out, you do need to at least stay equal on bases mined. The Lings and Hydras down the bottom is really not that much. They will go in. At the same time, these Interceptors just fly through, and these carriers are just going to make short work of it. This base just gets taken down, and Corruptors don't even really make much of a play. Nice feedback on the Viper. Every little feedback like that, every little thing you can do to stop these Vipers from finding abducts, right? Because if you find an abduct, then boom, mothership goes down, or then a carrier goes down. And those are free pickings from Scarlett. So that's the sort of thing you want to avoid then. As creator carriers, High Templar and the mothership continue away. Well, I am a little worried now that Scarlett still is only on 5 bases. Her bank is starting to dwindle. It's just not as full as you might want it to be. Guardian Shield gonna pop, and yes, Creator's just like, well, you know what? You have nothing here. Drops the Time Warp though, and the Time Warp came down a little bit too late. The rest of this army had already backed away. As we do see the Corruptors and Vipers are really still just stacked up together. We're gonna see these Changelings being targeted down, opening, taking away some of that vision that Scarlett's working on. Another nice feedback. Viper's just not getting a chance to really see anything. All these carriers on the bottom right. Another Archon morphing in. High Templar going to push forwards here. Spine Crawlers wanting to set up as our carriers are going to start firing interceptors forwards. A lot of spores and a lot of trouble. Broodlords getting stormed up. The extra Spine Serene force are coming across. A little bit worried about those Broods as they are very low already. There's a Storm and a Spine Crawl. I feel like another Storm or so on the Broodlords though would be fantastic. Here come the Corruptors flying into this. I mean, here the carriers going down basically one at a time. We've got the Infestors showing up. A couple Neuros would be nice. Just take some of these Interceptors away. Anything to help trade this out in Scarlett's favor. And Scarlett is going to trade out in her favor. Wow. Because she had such a smaller bank as well, it really shows you she's barely had to rebuild anything. Problem for creators, it's going to take an eternity to rebuild an army like this. 7 carriers start at once. 7 carriers at once might not even get the job done. I really feel like a couple of these later storms were really wasted, right? He could have maybe had another one on the Broods and maybe they start going down. He didn't really get many off on the Corruptors after the first one. Yeah, this is just not the fight you want. Now, Zealots will start running around the map and DTs too, so maybe Scarlett has to go and deal with that. Remember, Creator has a large bank, but look at the swing and resources lost. We'll have a look at the army supply here. No, we can't because we didn't host with GameHard. Sorry, guys. Players hosting sometimes forget. Creator trying to buy some time as the extra carriers come back up. But again, even if you get those carriers up, look at his gas bank. Just gone. Just absolutely doesn't exist now. He's on 8 carriers, 4 more in production. So he'll be back on 12. He's going to get back to maxed out, but that's basically going to be it. This is like his chance. Now, Scarlett made a lot of Hydras as reinforcements, so her air army maybe not as strong, but she actually has more to go and deny bases with. So this base down here might be in more trouble than previously. Critter will lose out in the top right. I mean, there was 90 minerals left here. Sorry, 150 minerals left here. That's not a major issue. Some of the production maybe, you could argue, is a little bit sad to see go down. Don't know if it's a major problem. A few more probes go down as well. I mean, there's nowhere for them to mine from. This is the only mining base of Creator on the bottom left, just as this is the only mining base from Scarlett. And that's the real sad part for Creator. By losing this fight, Scarlett now gets not just this base, but this base too. So Scarlett goes from being, on death's door in terms of mining. She had less than 1,000 minerals left on this base to, 2 fresh bases, open arms, embracing them like, hello, I wanted you so much. And now she has them. And that will be Creator's new problem, I guess, here is now denying those bases is going to be a little bit more difficult, I think. Carriers will come up into the middle. A couple of creep tumors going down. All of these changes getting picked up as well. Nice little abduct there. And another one. Mothership will try to recall. Goes down. So it's not just 400, it's also 50 energy. Feels bad. Okay, well. Army gonna go back down the bottom left as Creator instantly starts to rebuild the mothership down in this bottom left base. That's where he's going to push forward from. Carrier's getting pushed back by the few cannons. And a few zealots down here just killed. Trying to kill his own zealot in the way of getting rid of this Zergling. Still there. No, you were so close. Creator didn't realize how close he was to actually dealing with that. The Observer's now on the way over. Okay, well, I guess that's a more responsible way of dealing with it is... I mean, this base, again, it's like you're losing bases, but does it really matter? It matters if you start losing your production. You could argue that losing these bases clears the way to the production. I mean, where are all these Stargates? 7 Stargates on the map. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they are all in the main and natural. I mean, those are some very nice storms. These Hydras will do absolutely nothing. Like, that Scarlett just lost like 50 supply. That's expensive, and she's going to start rebuilding Hydras again. Resources lost now is adding up, but I don't know if resources lost is really a good indicator anymore, because now Korea is losing like a lot of bases and structures, and that's not really going to matter, because at the end of the day, he has an army. You know, at the end of the day, he's gonna, you know, if he's gonna win this game, he's eventually gonna go through all of Scarlett's bases and structures too. So I don't think, at least for the moment, it's that great of a indicator as to what's going on. Credit might just go, though. He doesn't seem to be interested in this bottom left base now after it gets denied. Moving up, gonna find this army kind of out of position from the spores that are only just finishing. Well, maybe can do something here. The interceptor's going in. Scarlett's still struggling to remax here completely. She has the lava, just hasn't decided what to build. Whatever she does build is going to take pretty much the rest of her money. More infestors and more corruptors than a handful of lings and hydras. I feel like you can't go wrong with that combination. Yeah, very low mineral count, but of course she's got 2 bases minus. So minerals come back very easily here. Some Voiders to help against these corruptors. Storm's already looking good against them. I think the High Templar now are very low on HP as the Parasitic Bomb is big. I don't think you necessarily need to split here because the carriers are only going to take shield damage. Then you just get back, regen the shields, and nothing actually goes down from that. No, don't tell me, not again. Oh, well, you know what? This time the Mothership at least gets a little bit of value because a few of the Corruptors go down. Hey, a lot of these Corruptors are going to go down this time. They're very low HP. A couple of Archons need to try and get on these Corruptors as well. If you can get rid of the Corruptors, you can actually just win this game. And the Corruptors just are not in high enough numbers to do this fast enough anymore. So all the Corruptors go down. I mean, there's just carriers left in the sky, but all the Broodlords obviously go down for free now. 12 new Corruptors building. Is that enough against this amount of carriers? Scarlett's out of minerals. Broodlord's going down. Lings over here didn't do much. Zealots show up. They're going to go clean out this bottom left side again. Well, yeah, I mean, the carriers win this fight. Scarlett loses pretty much everything and does not have the minerals to rebuild. She has 2,000 gas to work with. And that's kind of about it. Zealots back over the left and go after a few of these Zerglings. So Feeling's being picked away at the Spine Crawlers firing there as well. Carriers pulling back down the bottom. The Probes pulling back also. High Templar joining up. A few more Infestors. A couple more Vipers continuing to build here. And a few extra drones still just coming out as well. Lings will go to the upper right hand side. And they're going to end up coming through for the couple of cannons. So a couple of cannons going to take some damage. Going to take a lot of damage in fact. And I mean, it's not really going to matter, right? This is just Scarlett cleaning out a location. Cleaning out a location that was already kind of lost. Yeah, let's just look at the unit counter, I suppose. 13 Corruptors, 7 Infestors, and 4 Vipers are fighting 10 carriers, the 1 Voidway. And now, it's kind of the reverse of what happened in the top right. Scarlett loses this fight, and by losing this fight, down on the bottom left, Creator gets these 2 bases. Just as when Creator lost this fight, Scarlett got these 2 bases. So they both basically get access to extra bases now, and obviously Scarlett got hers first, so arguably a little bit better off, whereas Creator's only just now starting to mine from his. But if the game goes on, they're now both mining bottom left and top right, and I think that is very important to take note of. Interceptors coming through, the Zerglings getting pushed back pretty much right away. 7 more Corruptors building, 3 more cannons on the way, Void Ray, 2 more DTs. All of that coming out at the moment as these Zerglings go rushing through into the middle of the map. I think we'll go down to the bottom right-hand side. Feeling is going to start pushing through this mineral line and so through this wall off, and a few Zealots warp in to help protect that. The Lings are pretty quick in turning back away. Border coming up, 6 more Broodlords on the way down, Sentry about to finish. All of these Spore Crawlers out in the center. As Broodlords continuing to build from Scarlet, so resetting some of the air-to-ground army. But you do need some Broodlords because you need a way to deal with these Archons, you need a way to deal with these High Templar. You can't just have Archons and High Templar running completely free underneath this carrier force. Otherwise, the splash damage on the Corruptors becomes way, way too much. Lings find a Zeld on this right-hand side. A bunch more Zelds will warp in. A lot of Lings just continue to clean out. The one thing Korea's done well, though, is he's never really lost the natural or the main, so he never lost this production which he had set up. I mean, there's actually no production out on the map elsewhere. I actually feel like it's obviously very expensive to rebuild any of that, but that's something that could hurt if Scarlett was able to really take down the natural or main. Obviously, if that's not happening, then it doesn't really matter, but just if, if you do start to see that natural main fall, it's then something to think about, because then Creator might even, even if he just has to reinvest in the Stargates and so on, that's such an expense, which at this point you really can't afford. I mean, yeah, eventually you will get the money too off these bases you're mining from, but it's very, very tough. Carriers and a few voids hanging around then. Just going to see another carrier chrono boosting out. Joining in very soon as a few spore crawlers edge their way forwards. Lings and Banes to the far left-hand side, as we do have the cannons building for Creator in the bottom left, and moving up to the high ground there. Changeling gets taken down in an instant. And that is a bunch more spore crawlers just burrowing up and pressing forwards. Here's the Scarlett, able to get a bunch more spores down to the bottom side. We do have even more spores coming to join in. Lings and the Banes continue to move across, as we do have the rest of the spore crawlers all burrowing. And now Creator, carriers, voids, all of this joining up in the center here. The Lings are going to run down, and they're going to get surrounded on these Zealots, which will go down very quickly. 6 more Corruptors continuing to come into play. Carrier gets abducted. Mothership, taking a lot of damage. Is going to go down. Get some storms on the Corruptors at least. Well, this is going to get interesting, because the storms on the Corruptors, and then you're going to the top right. You kind of force a fight if Scarlett wants to keep these bases alive, but she's already taken major damage on the Corruptors, so actually committing to that fight kind of really does hurt. A couple of yoinks and carriers that are just sitting a bit too far forwards, and they go down for free. The Lings and Broodlords are going to go deny the bottom left, so Creator going to lose bases as well. Maybe Creator just prefers this. He recalls a single Void Ray. Storms on an Infestor that will now go down. The Neuroparasite is lost. I'm not sure where that Void Ray even went to, but it's wherever it is. I've got no clue. Okay, well, that's just gone. Creator's losing a lot here. I mean, I do feel like Creator is in a position where I mean, both players are going to end up basically fighting with just the army they have remaining. They have very little left afterwards. But Creator just lost a bunch of carriers, and those abducts were massive. And that's going to be another carrier caught here. Neural parasited in, and it just feels like Creator is not protecting these carriers like he needs to. The few that he lost already that would just, hang around over on this left-hand side, really painful already. Now these Broodlords come pushing through. All of these cannons in a lot of trouble, and well, Zealots and Archons are going to go cleaning up everything else. This hatchery in the top right is not destined to live much longer, as the Lings get in this round. One Archon down, the second Archon falling. A few Banes will crash in, killing off some Zealots. But I think Scarlett has got this game in the bag. 38 minutes of ZVP here on Simulacrum. And what a best of 3 this turned out to be. It was worth the 15 minutes or so we waited initially to get into it, I think. Yeah, I don't know if you guys agree, but it kind of feels that way. A couple of abducts again, Corruptors continuing in, picking off carrier after carrier. And those Void Rays getting caught in another fungal growth, so they back away for a moment or two. But it's going to be GG. Creator cannot play this out. Scarlett's late game will prevail to give her the 2-0 over Creator and advance through to the second round of this qualifier. This was just round 1.